In this series of videos, we're going to see how to install security certificates so that we can support HTTPS correctly. And there are some things that have to be true for you to be able to do this. So the most important thing is you need to have an IP address that the outside world can talk to. So you're running a web server on your machine, but the outside world has to be able to connect to that web server for this next bit to work. So if you're running a real service, then you want to allow people to connect to your site 24 by 7 and build traffic. In order to do that, you need a static IP address. So a static IP address is a fixed IP address on the internet that doesn't change. And usually this costs extra money. It's not provided with consumer level internet access. It's really considered a commercial service and you have to pay a premium for it. So anywhere from $100 to and up per month. And that's what you need for a real service. But if you just want to test this out and you just want to get this working, you don't necessarily need a static IP address. If you have consumer level internet access, then you have a dynamically allocated IP address that comes from a pool of IP addresses that your internet service provider keeps track of. But often you'll be using the same IP address for sometimes up to 2 weeks or so. So that's more than enough for testing purposes. And in fact, if you just have dial-up, you may or may not be able to do this even without having like cable modem or anything else. I guess we don't have dial-up anymore. We have Wi-Fi though. So this may or may not work if you're connected to the internet over Wi-Fi. It certainly won't work if you're connected to PCC's Wi-Fi because even though you have an IP address that's externally available, the firewalls and routers that administer the PCC site will not allow the outside world to connect to your machine. So what you really need is to have an IP address that's available to the outside world, and you also need to have firewalling set up to allow both port 80 and port 443 to connect to your machine. So we'll go ahead and see how to check this first. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to type, what is my IP address? And hit return. And Google tells me what my IP address is on the internet. And if it looks like this, 173, 164, 76, 49, what this is actually the IP address of the router that my machine is connected to, because I'm running a local area network with a bunch of machines that are all talking to the same router. And if I go to http:// and then I'm going to copy that IP address and paste it in. Actually, I don't get anything because I'm not running the web server right now. So let me go ahead and start the web server up. So I'm going to go to XAMPP control, run as administrator. And I'm going to start Apache, and I'll start MySQL as well. And I'm just going to leave this up because I'm going to need it later. So now let me try it. Good. So if this is what you see when you go to the external IP address, then you're probably in good shape. Now, if your IP address looks something like 10.1.196 or 196.254.2. Whatever, then you probably don't have a real IP address. So let's actually see what's running on this IP address. This is the IP address of my router. And I'm going to go to 192.168.2.1, and that's the IP address of my router on my local area network. And I'm going to log into the router. So I'm actually using a Linksys router as my main router. And the way that connections to the router, the IP address of the router, get to the machine that's running my web server is under Applications and Gaming. I have port forwarding set up. So my router forwards port 80 to this machine right here, 192.168.233, which is this machine that I'm on right now on my local area net. So if you try to access this IP address from the outside world, it will not work because this is not a real IP address. It's a local area network. And then I also have port forwarding set up for 443, that's the secure one, HTTPS, to the same machine. So just to summarize, the outside world does have a connection to my firewall. I have an IP address on the outside world that matches my firewall that people can access. And then my firewall has port forwarding set up for port 80 and port 443. And when I have both of those things working, I can connect to my web server. And if you can do this too, then you're in good shape for the next bit.